Well, welcome everybody to the Core Truth podcast series. Today, I am more than excited to have my very, very special friend and colleague and partner over the years, Ernie Carswell. Ernie, welcome to the podcast.
This is a thrill to be with you, Peter, and to be on the podcast. I think it's my first podcast, or at least it's the most important podcast I've ever been on.
Well, actually, you do the Cabana series. It's quite nice, actually. If people haven't been tuning into that, I like that series.
That's that little thing I do out in my cabana. And I don't know if I can elevate it to the level of pod. It's sort of homespun Ernie wisdoms as I saw them primarily during the pandemic. I started that to stay in communication with my colleagues and clients, and it took a foothold that I didn't expect.
Yeah, it really did. And it's so valuable and it adds so much great content for our clients. So, Ernie, I want to start off by just talking about your illustrious career. I've been able for the last, several years, be your colleague and kind of watch you from not only up close, but afar. And it started in Dallas. Is that right? Is that where you?
That's where my real estate career began, in Dallas. I'm not from Dallas. Even the Texans thought I spoke a little funny, but I'm from the Carolinas and Georgia for the accent that I possess. But Dallas was where I began real estate.
Hmm. And then you went to the big city, Manhattan, New York.
From Big D to the Big Apple. It wasn't the plan. And, the thing about residential real estate, as all of us have learned, if you move out of town, you start over because it doesn't necessarily follow you. You must plant your seeds and till your soil and grow your own garden in the next city that you move to. So I started from scratch in New York. The New Yorkers didn't care what I'd done in Texas. I'd had some success, but they didn't care. It's not New York. And they want to know, well, when I went to my first interview with Douglas Elliman, it was pretty funny. They sent me packing. I was all kind of proud about I closed some deals in Dallas. And the president of Douglas Elliman said, well, that's good. And we're glad, but this is New York. What have you done here? So they sent me back to the drawing board and I had to prove myself in New York at another company. And once I did that, Douglas Elliman welcomed me in and the rest has been history.
So, how much time did you spend in Dallas, and how much time did you spend in New York?
Dallas, I was there 5 years.
Okay.
Not all of those I was in real estate, but the tail end of that I was the last 3. And Manhattan was another 3.5. And then once I got to the West Coast, hey, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere else. So I don't have to start over ever again. LA is my town.
What of those three markets? What do you think was the toughest one? What was the least forgiving, or maybe even, and then maybe tell us what was the most forgiving? What was
Boy, that's a great question. Of the 3, all of them have their special challenges. Texas, and I was a new rookie agent then, learning everything from the basics. So that was a learning curve. But Texans by nature are usually pretty outgoing and friendly. It's flat as my desk, so there's nothing to do but get along with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And in Dallas, and they have a good time. So it was a very social way of starting my business as a young agent. New York City, I mean, you wake up when you hit that town because it expects the best if you're going to survive there and everything that you do business wise and just surviving. So
Mm-hmm.
it was tough. And yet, in some ways, it was much easier to build a solid career foundation in New York City because at that time in the 80s, it was all about New York Times and being in the newspapers. There was no internet yet,
Mm-hmm.
and there certainly was no MLS. There still isn't in New York City. They've got some facsimiles to that, like Street Easy and all that. But um, I just was able to build my business through placing ads in the New York Times, and those New Yorkers would call on it, and you'd go meet them. And once they met me and I met them, I tried to start building the rapport. It's the same exercise you do at any time in any I think, era. That's the way I guide my agents now. You've got to build rapport from the beginning meeting with any
Mhm.
potential client. So New York actually was much easier than Los Angeles. I will tell you, folks, LA was a tough town to crack. And many New Yorkers, and I was an ex New Yorker at the time, just think they're going to wash out to Los Angeles and everybody's on a Chase lounge with a margarita looking at palm trees and we don't work much. And it's a
Mhm.
big wake up call because this is a working city. Hollywood is a major machine and it's tough.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the engine of what runs a lot of this city and the way the business thoughts go here. So LA was the toughest town for me to really build a foothold.
It's kind of like acting in a way. Like everybody comes to Hollywood to become an actor, and everybody comes to Hollywood, Beverly Hills to become a realtor too. It's really kind of the Super Bowl
Yeah,
of real
it's very
estate.
humbling. It is.
Yeah.
It's humbling. And we can be proud of that at this level where we have survived that and we've risen to the top. And this company, Douglas Elliman, is here and so respected now in our city. But there's a proving ground that Los Angeles requires of everybody, whether you're coming here to be an actor or a real estate agent or something else.
All those cities, because I'm familiar with them too, having worked in Dallas and New York, from the level that I work and what I do. Um, they all have their challenges and their kind of points of entry that you have to be accepted into those communities to really be successful there. Dallas has its set of rules that you need to comply to as well as New York. I think you're right. What you teach your agents, and one of the great things about you, Ernie, is you know how to, because I've been with you on so many appointments. You know how to adapt, like, to the clientele, and you're like a chameleon almost, and you become a Texan, you become a New Yorker, you become a Californian almost instantly, and bond with your clients.
Well, that's thank you, Peter. And you have been on a number of appointments with me with clients in the living room and seen me have to go from cold turkey into, trying to warm it up in the room. But one of the earliest things I learned from taking the Dale Carnegie course and right on up to Tony Robbins is that the way and Barbara Walters, by the way, she wrote a book and I read it in high school about how to get people comfortable with you when you first meet them. And
Mhm.
first of all, it's ask them questions about themselves. We tend to want to talk about ourselves, but the way to really get that person you want to connect with interested in you is to ask them about them and to be all focused on what's important to them. And they will just gravitate toward liking you much quicker. So I just work from that operation base when I'm trying to establish rapport with a potential client or a new agent that I'm meeting. Ask them, compliment them about something they're wearing or something that's going
Yeah,
on in their lives. And it's a very warm reception.
yeah. You and I share a very, very kind of special time in our lives, and that was when we founded Telus Properties together.
Mm.
Um, I think you and I both always had the dream of having our own brokerage, and when this opportunity came along for us, and we decided to jump on it and do it, but I've never asked you the question, what it meant to you to be part of that whole adventure and experience.
Wow, Peter, it was life affirming for a young man like me coming from, well, then I was younger, for a boy like me coming out of the peanut fields from Georgia and the hills of South Carolina, ending up in a city like this. It was just a dream. And then to think that I could be a partner with great leaders in the industry like you and to start a company in Beverly Hills, it just seemed monumental and very valuable to me. And we had a lot that we learned together as partners starting that company, and the market crashed within 3 months after we started it.
Mhm.
That was a wake
Right
up
after the
call for us.
ceiling crashed, and I want you
Gee,
to
the
share that
ceiling,
story. First, our
boy,
ceiling crashed, and then the market crashed.
I think it was a rainy day like it is here in Los Angeles, and we had just gotten into our new offices across from the Peninsula Hotel, and it was raining so hard, the ceiling in my office just and in the conference room just caved in on us,
Yes.
just like like wet tissue everywhere.
Yeah,
And we thought this is not a good sign for our new company, but boy, did we survive.
we did.
And we
We took
persevered,
on the
and
giants, Ernie.
we sure did. And you know what? We did it in a way that wasn't flashy and trying to be bling bling and all of that. We just told the truth. We did good advertising, and we were, ethical. And we weren't flashy though. And you know what? That's what helped us start making a profit. And some of the flashier upstart companies, they were not making a profit for many years longer than when our company, Telus Properties, became profitable. But they were much flashier, and people could have thought, oh, they're doing really well. And we knew they weren't. But
Yeah.
we were doing really well, which is why we attracted a solid national company like Douglas Elliman to want to purchase us because we were profitable.
Well, we had our, the foundation was in place, like you said, and we were the only profitable company, and we weren't, we were just so different, and our cultures were so similar to Element. I mean, the training, the coaching, the luxury, all of that was, I think, what made us attractive to them.
Yeah.
And
Well,
now
you
I'm so,
say that.
yeah, yeah,
Well, you say that, Peter. But when I first laid eyes on you, we were at a different company that preceded all of these things we've mentioned, and that was the leading company in Southern California in the 80s and the early 90s, which was John Douglas Company.
correct.
And you were the rising star of that company working west of the 405. And I'd heard about you. And I think you were specializing in Marina Del Rey and the beach
NS
cities, right?
Marina, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I just kept hearing about, boy, this superstar, Peter Hernandez.
Uh,
And I just had great admiration for you. So the company that we now know as Element, I think shares a lot of those qualities that you and I saw back in the 80s and 90s with the John Douglas Company,
like,
which
wasn't
just had,
Element and John Douglas kind of like sister companies in a way? They were part of a trust, a brain trust or something, I believe.
well, they were aware of each other. They may not have
Correct.
been financially linked,
Not
but
financially tied.
but
Yeah.
but but they had. I remember Jack Douglas when he interviewed me coming from New York, and he knew I was from Douglas Elliman, and he was very impressed. And
Hmm.
so they had a lot of mutual corporate respect for
Both
each
those
other.
companies had stature. They had
Yes.
respect, I think, in the
Yeah.
brokerage community. And I think that's what exists today. Um, you know, it takes a lot of excellence to be successful and to rise to the top as you have done in luxury real estate in LA. I mean, Ernie, it's not going to be granted to everybody to have that type of success. And I believe with all my heart that a big part of your success is your attention to detail and nuance. I'll never forget when we walked in that one house. I think it was in, I think it was Pasadena or maybe Las Feliz. So it wasn't the musician's house, but it was one of these houses. And you looked at a doorknob and you told the owner where the doorknob came from. And I was sure at that moment
Wow.
we had the listing. He couldn't believe
I,
it.
I hope we got it. Well, I do have an eye for detail, and it's quirky details sometimes. It's not the typical details others may notice, but and I do mention it if it's beneficial or if it's gratifying to that person. We were trying to build rapport, so I noticed something of special merit, and I was complimenting that potential client and pointing out that I noticed this because you're special, Mr. Client, and that's a good way to get on someone's good side. But it's always honest base for me. I mean, I was just noticing something that was worth noticing.
That you
But
appreciated.
the thing about luxury and excelling in luxury in Los Angeles, Peter, a lot of agents that come to me ask me this question: Ernie, how can I get into luxury real estate? Well, I'll just answer the way I've done it in three different cities, three different times. First, place yourself with others that are already there.
Mm,
Become known to the luxury agents in your area. If the clients know you don't have enough experience yet, it'll come with time, but get with the right network of real estate agents and colleagues that are out doing the business of luxury, and it will begin to kind of pour over you. You've got to adopt the position in order to be placed the mantle on your shoulders. And it takes
Mhm.
a while. It doesn't happen in a minute. And,
Right.
reality TV wants to, some of those shows want to just project like, we're just running around with a key ring of, you know,
Right.
billionaires' homes and driving Maseratis and Rolls Royces, and it all happened overnight. Sorry, none of it happens overnight. That's totally misrepresentative. This takes dedicated time, effort, and patience to get into
Mhm.
the luxury market. No one gets an easy footing.
Will you train excellence to your agents? I mean, down to holding an open house, to showing a property, to marketing a property. I think excellence is talked about in every one of those aspects of selling real estate. Can you give us an example of maybe what the average agent does and what an excellent agent might do, and something that maybe it's just a small detail or nuance but could have significant effect in a sale?
At the baseline, Peter, and my team agents on my team know this pretty much from working with me over the times. Um, you've got to remember that human beings, we come from the animal world. So I'm going
Mm,
to talk a little bit about anthropology here. And reading body language is louder than the language coming from our lips.
mm,
And I think many agents don't recognize that, don't practice it, and just can't comprehend it. But you must look at every person you're speaking with and notice how they're positioning themselves. If they're all closed off and their arms are closed and they're looking somewhere else and they're distracted, you don't have their attention and they're somewhat being dismissive of you. You've got to read the signals in the body language of those in luxury real estate and get a foothold of getting their attention in the right way. And you've got to be sure your body language is sending the signals of openness and willingness to listen and showing interest and little things like that. But you don't sit down. I mean, you try to always remain standing and poised for action. A lot of agents I know, I'll go to open houses and they're sitting on the sofa looking at their phone. What is that? What kind of
yeah.
body language message are they saying? They're saying, I'm not interested in what I'm doing. I'm stuck on this sofa having to host an open house. Our bodies give a loud megaphone about
Mm,
what's going on in our heads. And
mhm,
many agents don't realize that. So think about what you look like you're doing when people come in your houses, when you're hosting a showing or an open house. Think about what the seller may be thinking of you, the way you enter their home, and if you're too boisterous, or it's
mhm.
just there's a lot of body language and subliminal messaging that goes on, and I think agents miss that and they don't focus on it.
Yeah. Ernie, you run a big team. How many agents do you have now?
We're 29 on the team.
29. Are you still growing?
Oops, just slipped through the door. Yeah. Yeah, we are growing. And you know what? I still have a policy that this year I'm going to continue to grow. And I had questioned that in the fourth quarter of last year, but I decided, you know what? Go forth and grow. Um, and whatever the market is doing, you know, be be there for it. And so I'm willing to grow, but I'm not willing to, die on the vine, so to speak. We've got to be active. We've got to be working collaboratively as a team. I love mentoring and being a leader if I can to these other agents who are building their careers. My position as a team leader is about what can this team do to help build your career?
Mhm,
And that is our focus. I'm still a working agent. So I've got my career and I'm
mhm.
working on it, but I'm trying to build fires under the and bonfires for my agents so that their careers blossom and go.
Kind of like your time to give back a little bit. Like so many have given to you and have mentored you over the years and have helped you. It's your turn now, right?
Thank you for saying that. It's exactly what I feel like I'm doing, giving back.
I love
Exactly.
that. I love that. What do you think are key secrets to your leadership? Like, what do you think if somebody was starting a team or building a team? What should they focus on as a leader?
Okay, only be a team leader if you have an interest in helping others.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, some team leaders are just looking for ways to make more money.
Hmm.
So I'm sorry, I don't want to join that team where the team leader's just out to make more money on me. I want to join the team where the team leader wants to care about my career, wants to care about my challenges and help me overcome them. Maybe pat me on the shoulder when I've done something good and pat me somewhere else when I've done something bad, you know? So
Hmm.
I want that interactivity with the team leader.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to provide.
Are you guys going to stay mostly in LA, or are you going to branch out? What are your plans for growth?
Well, we're bursting at the seams on LA County. I've been in Orange County just this last week twice, and we're taking listings there. We're taking listings in Pasadena, up the road in Santa Barbara. I love Southern California, and I think there's no boundaries. It's just living in the car. But we want to grow. I had an idea because it was sentimental to me about opening in Dallas and all of that. And I did decide I don't need to do that. And I don't need to spread myself that thin because anywhere I can drive from this office here in Beverly Hills, I feel like I can service it, even Palm Springs.
Okay.
But I can't drive to Texas. I got to get on a plane, and so then I'm like spreading myself too thin.
And there's plenty of business between Carmel and Coronado and Beverly Hills and Palm Springs. There's probably
Well,
more than enough.
there's not only plenty of business, Peter. California is the sixth largest economy in the world. It's like
I think it's
equal
the
to
fourth,
Germany. So
actually. Not to contradict you, but I think we're the fourth.
well, thank you.
Yeah,
Why do I need to go anywhere, any other state if we're the biggest and the most?
I
So,
agree.
it's all
Yeah,
here. It's all here.
yeah, I agree. So you finally made it to Hollywood, and you're part of the show. Kendra sells Hollywood. Talk to us about this. I didn't know my good friend would become a movie star, and here you are.
Far from that, Peter. But, I will just tell you that this is, again, a statement from me that I was very uncomfortable with the basis of most reality television that was spoofing what we do or making fun of things or looking at us like we're counting commissions all the time. I'm sorry, I just was really uncomfortable with it. So when I was called by Kendra Sells Hollywood, I told them real quickly, no, no, I don't do that. It was back during the pandemic, and the producers said, no, no, we know that, Ernie, and we want to show you teaching an agent coming from the Playboy Mansion into the business world how to be an agent. And I was like, well, I don't know how that's going to work, but I listened a little more. And so that's really what happened. And so we filmed our first season on Discovery Plus, and we were the number one watch show on Discovery Plus, but that's not the biggest network in the nation. So only 22 million people saw it, perhaps.
Only
But
22.
now the good news is our network has bought everybody else. It's Warner, Discovery, and they have
Mhm.
HBO and all of this and HGTV. So I'm going to tell you now that in April, early April, our first season will now be on HGTV as a television series. So everybody
Wow.
that missed it on Discovery can now watch it on HGTV. That'll
Wow.
be announced in April. And then we're going to spread even larger to the streaming network, which will have about 200 million audience. So it's going to take off a little bit more recognizably. And season two's in the bag, and we're going to launch in a month or so. And
Wow.
it's it's a very interesting
I want
show.
to be at the launch party, so don't forget me.
Okay, you'll be there. I'm so
um,
proud of Kendra. She's learning, and we're teaching her the ethical way of Douglas Elliman, and that's what the show's about, and how to tell the truth and win listings and sell houses, and it's happening. And we don't have to drive Maseratis to do it. We're doing it just fine in BMWs.
I love it. I love it. So you've listed a Casbah. Tell us
Oh
about
yeah.
that.
One of my clients is a fashion designer. I just admire this. Maybe it's going to be my next stage. She retired from 40 something years of designing ball gowns that the actors wear to Oscars and Emmys and stuff. And she was just a very hot commodity in the couture gown department named Sue Wong. And when she officially retired, she her mind didn't stop. She's so
Mm,
creative. And so it was the pandemic, and she started buying real estate like she used to buy fabric. And so she bought 6 or 7 places and started artistically, using her imagination to do them. So this is now the second home for her that we're going to sell. And she went to Morocco and brought a big piece of Morocco back and installed it in this house in Los Feliz. And
wow.
it is a Casbah. You've not seen something like this before.
Yeah.
So all we are missing is the camels. But I'd love to show it to you, Peter. It's quite special.
That's great. Well, we have a link here, everybody. So if you would like to see it online, just click on that link and you can see this spectacular house. You will be transported to Morocco instantly as soon as you get there. And if anybody's interested, please reach out to Ernie and I'm sure he'll give you a tour. Now, there's another listing you just took, which is this historic 38.5 million LA compound called the Knoll House. Now, tell us about this one.
Yeah. So this one's really a very historic home in Pasadena. It's one of the oldest homes. It was built in, God, okay, I should know that number exactly, like 1903 or something, by Myron Hunt, who is a hugely respected architect. And then Gordon Kaufman came in 20 years later and did a further expansion. And then one of the great philanthropists of Southern California bought the home, and she built a museum on the property. This is acres of property. And her art that was housed in the museum at her home became the art at the Huntington
Oh,
Museum
wow.
and Gardens in Pasadena. She's passed away, obviously. My owner bought that compound and did a 7-year, multi-million dollar upgrade and renovation to the entire estate. And we have just launched it within the last week to great attention and applause. It's about 32,000 square feet of living space, and it's the
Wow.
only home in America that has its own museum with it. Um, so you can house anything there, whether it's art or cars or motorcycles or, you know, tugboats.
I mean, I saw the picture of the house, kind of a semi-aerial view, and it just looks stunning and just large and palatial and
Yeah,
grand and
yeah.
just amazing.
It is. It's very presidential. When you're in the house itself, you feel like you could be, at the White House or some great,
That's what I got the feeling.
presidential. Yeah,
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 just
very
somebody
presidential.
super, super famous could live there. Um, what about Pasadena?
I
What do you
just
think of
love
Pasadena?
Pasadena.
I do
I
too.
just I just love it. And Pasadena really predates Los Angeles. That's where the wealthy Easterners were coming from the East Coast, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and they discovered the citrus groves of Southern California and this amazing weather and Santa Barbara and Pasadena and built these huge mansions. This
Yes.
was one of them, by the way. And it it just it's so beautiful. So I hope everybody that's listening to us, if you just stay, west of La Cienega, you're missing a big part of living in LA. You need to go and explore Pasadena. It's a
I
fabulous
mean,
city.
what's more
So
famous than the parade, the New Year's parade and the Rose Bowl game? I mean, Pasadena has so much history. It's kind of an intellectual, artsy kind of town too, wouldn't you say?
definitely, and very with Caltech there. And
Hmm.
we live in earthquake country. Well, it's all monitored at Caltech in Pasadena. I mean, that is the authority in California for earthquake activity and just science and geology. So
Yeah,
there's just great stuff to love about Pasadena and
culture,
the
everything.
architecture and culture.
Yeah,
So,
really nice place.
and we've got
Well,
a
we
Douglas
have in
Elliman
the
office there.
That's right. Well, we have here also a link. If you would like to learn more about this property, you can go there with that link and just be knocked out by an amazing home. So thank you for that. By the way, what is your take on the market right now in terms of activity and things like that?
Well, I'm probably going to be burned out on the word using transitional, but I've been saying that since the fourth quarter. I think we're beyond transitional now. I think we're in a moment of this market where it requires our full attention. The bank failures of the last 2 weeks have the economic forecasters' attention. We're all looking to see what the Fed's going to do next week. There's still disagreement on whether they're going to go on and increase, which concerns us, or now because of this bank concern, keep it flatlining at where it is. What
Hmm.
I say to myself and my team and anyone listening to us is we must keep going regardless of what the market's doing. It's just like you and I did, Peter, as partners when TELUS, we had just started this company and put all of our nest egg into it, and the market
Hmm.
crashed and went down 40% in 1 year.
Hmm.
What choice did we have but to keep going? So
Nothing.
no matter what you face in challenges of a real estate market, you can overcome it if you survive it. And you don't survive it by being negative and pulling everybody down with you. Instead, you need to be positive about we've got an opportunity. We must make this happen when times are a little bit scary, and they are scary right now. But it's harder to get a deal to stick. They're taking more effort to negotiate between buyers and sellers,
Hmm.
and we're just going to have to keep going.
Yeah, and we are, and we will, and we always have.
We have.
So your career at Element, you were at Element once, you're at Element again. What does that mean? What is that all about? How does that happen?
I I just am so fortunate to have had two iterations of Douglas Elliman, the company, because the company I was with in New York City in the 80s called Douglas Elliman was owned by someone other, not Howard Lorber then. This was owned by the Milstein family. And it had the stellar sterling reputation that our current Douglas Elliman does. Um, but I just feel so fortunate that the name Douglas Elliman has returned in my career. And I'm so proud of it. And the thing about the market, Peter, that we just mentioned, even though it may be a churned up sea out there and a rough ocean that our market's going to give us for a few months, uh,
Hmm.
don't you want to be on a big boat in that instead of some little dinghy being tossed and thrown by the waves? This would be the time that I would think
I want to be
agents
on a
would
luxury liner.
appreciate.
Yes.
Yes, the QE2 or something like
That's
that.
right. Yeah.
This is the time to be with a company like Douglas Elliman that embraces its agents, provides so much support, seminars. Look at what you're doing. You're creating podcasts, and there's so much education for agents. This is the big ship to be on when the sea and the ocean out there is all churned up and too many waves. Ride it on a big ship. Don't ride it on a little dinghy, you know?
I agree. Well, Ernie, thank you so much for spending time with me. I've just enjoyed our friendship and relationship and working together, our partnerships, everything so much. You're such a good friend, and I admire you more than you know. And when I get the opportunity to watch you in action, I'm taking mental notes. I'm watching how you have planned everything, how strategic you are, how thoughtful you are, how kind you are. You're so kind to people and so thoughtful. And I hear it from agents, I hear it from clients, I hear it all over the world, actually, how much respect you have earned and gained through your efforts in this real estate industry.
I'm
So my
humbled by
hat's
that.
off to you. Well, not quite because I have my airplanes on, but I am with you 100%. And I hope we get to work together for another 15 years.
Peter, I just love you. And I don't mean to bring any tears to the eyes, but I'm going to tell you, you mean the world to me. And I'm humbled by what you said. Hard for me to accept, but thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. You bet. Thank you for joining us. That's a